some days in Wisconsin it's just best to stay indoors. A midwinter blizzard or a late spring storm, these are the days I turn to my indoor garden. It's also a great way to garden if you don't have a yard. Welcome to the Wisconsin Gardener. I'm your host, Shelley Ryan. On this edition of the Wisconsin Gardener, we'll share some tips on indoor gardening, including what grows well indoors and what doesn't. For instance, growing bonsai is a great indoor hobby, but only if you choose the right plants. We'll show you what will grow well in your home. We'll also look at the art of storytelling and show you how a simple story can help you learn more about the plants around you. But first up, we'll show you some houseplants that bear edible fruit, even indoors. That's next on the Wisconsin Gardener.
Production of the Wisconsin Gardener is made possible in part by Jung's Seed and Nursery Company, with garden centers in Randolph, Stevens Point, Madison, and Sun Prairie. Fiskars, a Wisconsin manufacturer of ergonomic cutting tools for the home and garden, distributed worldwide. And the Ahrens Foundation, the charitable arm of the Ahrens Company, Brillion, Wisconsin, maker of lawn and garden power equipment for consumer and commercial markets worldwide.
Wouldn't it be fun to grow your own coffee beans indoors any time of the year? We're at Felly's Greenhouse in the Madison area, and with me is UW Extension fruit crop specialist Terrell Roper to look at some indoor fruiting houseplants that you can grow at home. You know, Terrell, one of the first ones I started with was the Myers lemon, and it's a pretty forgiving plant. It sits in my southeast bay window and it doesn't seem to complain very much.
Myers lemon is a good place to begin. It doesn't have very exacting environmental requirements, and given even moderate care, you should be able to get fruit that are attractive, like the one that's in your hand.
Real lemons. I could even make lemonade in the middle of the winter. That'd be great.
That'd be wonderful.
Now, this is one I've also tried, a pomegranate, and I have not had quite as much luck with it.
Pomegranate's a lot more exacting in its requirements, and if it's not given proper care, it'll drop all its leaves and look pretty much dead.
Yeah, I had a dead one there for quite a while. Now, this one actually is starting to form some fruit, and the seeds of this are edible. They're great in salads.
That's right, and a plant this size is really nice to take home and see if you have the conditions and the skills to grow fruit indoors.
Well, and it's easy to move around and try to find the right spot for it, too.
That's right.
Now, you told me that I can also grow strawberries indoors.
That's right. These are standard June-bearing strawberries, just like you plant outdoors in your garden. We put these in pots, about 10 days ago, and in another month or so, we'll have flowers and fruit.
Can you imagine harvesting fresh strawberries in the winter? That'd be great.
Nice red strawberries.
Now, most of my fruiting houseplants sit in my bay window, and some winters they do great and I get lots of fruit. Some winters they just sit there. What do I need to do to ensure successful indoor fruit growing?
The primary limitation of growing fruit indoors in Wisconsin is having enough light. Our winters are dark, the days are short, we have cloudy days, and plants simply don't get enough light.
And the winters are long, too.
And we can supplement the natural light with artificial light. A simple way to do that is with a standard fluorescent fixture like this one that's available from most discount or hardware stores. This fixture has standard cool white bulbs in it, and they're very strong in the blue wavelengths.
Okay.
If you use cool white bulbs, you should probably supplement that with incandescent bulbs, just standard light bulbs, to give you more wavelengths in the red.
What do I need that for?
Photosynthesis requires energy in both the blue and the red wavelengths.
Spectrum. Okay.
So in order to be best, we have to have both blue and red light. Or you could simply replace these bulbs with the grow tubes.
And then we'd get the full spectrum.
Give you the full spectrum.
Okay, what is this? This is very, very high-tech looking.
This is a quartz halogen fixture. Again, they're available at most discount and hardware stores. Gives off a lot of energy, particularly rich in the red wavelengths. The one drawback to them, though, is they also produce a lot of heat.
Okay.
So we need to keep those about 1.5 to 2 feet away from the tops of the plants.
Okay, what about the fluorescent light? How close should those be?
The fluorescent light could be quite a bit closer, maybe 15 to 18 inches away from the top of the plant.
Okay.
And we want them as close as we can to get as much light energy as possible, but yet far enough away so we don't burn the foliage.
We're not cooking them.
Right.
And do we leave these on 24 hours a day?
They probably need to be on 16 to 18 hours a day.
Okay.
Plants need a little downtime just like you and I do.
Okay. You know, another issue in growing plants indoors in the winter is humidity. We don't have a lot of it in Wisconsin in the winter.
That's right, and most of these plants are tropical to subtropical species, and they're used to hot, steamy jungles.
Yeah.
And if we gave them those kinds of environmental conditions, we'd condense water everywhere.
We could have rotting floorboards, windowsills.
That's right. So we want to increase the humidity locally.
Okay.
An easy way to do that is simply by misting the plants with an ordinary spray bottle.
Okay.
If you do that a couple of times a day, the plant should be very happy.
Okay.
Another way to do that is with a pebble tray. Take an old cookie sheet, spread some gravel on the cookie sheet, and then set the plants on top of the gravel and pour some water in over the gravel that the cookie sheet will hold.
Okay, now we never have the plants actually sitting in water.
That's right, they're sitting above the gravel, and then the water will evaporate and increase the humidity locally.
Okay, temperature seems to be another important issue. Now, my Myers lemon sits in a bay window that's very drafty, and it doesn't seem to mind, but other plants really suffer.
Again, these are tropical to subtropical species, and they need warm temperatures. And particularly for those of us who are out of our homes during the day, and we turn the temperature down before we go to work and turn the temperature down when we go to bed, plants simply don't get enough heat. They would probably like temperatures in the 70 to 72 degree range.
During the day?
During the day when the lights are on. At night we can still turn the temperature down. There's going to need to be a little bit of a compromise between the fuel bill and the plant's happiness.
And of course the plants are most important. What about getting fruit? Now that's the biggest issue with growing fruiting houseplants. There is a trick to it. I know in my coffee plant sits out on the porch in the summer. It blooms there and it does fine. I get lots of fruit.
Right, and outdoors there are lots of pollinating insects that will be happy to do that job for you, but most of us don't want to share our homes with pollinating insects, like honeybees.
Right, and something like the lemon blooms indoors in the winter, so we have a problem.
So we need to do the pollination ourselves.
Okay.
That's easily done with a cotton swab. Just take some of the pollen off the anthers and deposit it on the stigma.
Okay, it's
or
easy enough.
You can simply take two flowers that are close together and rub them together.
The lazy gardener's way, my way.
Right.
Now, do we have to worry about eating the fruit from these?
If you've purchased a large specimen from a greenhouse, they will have been treated with pesticides.
Okay.
Greenhouses are difficult pest environments, and so you probably want to wait a year before you consume any of that fruit. But if you've been growing fruit at home, and the plant's been in your home for a while, and you haven't used pesticides, you can go ahead and consume the fruit.
So if you're going to eat it, don't avoid pesticides at home yourself, too.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Terrell. So consider one of these plants for your indoor garden. I always thought growing bonsai would be a great winter hobby. I could bring these beautiful evergreens indoors when it's too cold to garden outside. Imagine my surprise when I found out some of these are not houseplants. Joining me is Tim O'Rourke, owner of Wisconsin Bonsai Nursery and a member of the Badger Bonsai Society. Tim, let's start out with a definition. What does bonsai mean?
Well, bonsai means, strictly translated to, a plant in a pot.
Oh.
Obviously, it's a little bit more than that, in bonsai we try to capture the spirit of nature, something wild or ideal that we've seen. Say, something on the side of a cliff, or a forest, or the tree in the middle of a meadow.
You're almost trying to capture the emotion of wildness.
That's right.
Okay, well, we have a variety in front of us, some outdoor and some indoor. I guess, first of all, tell me which plants I can't grow as houseplants and why.
Well, the temperate climate ones, especially the junipers, the maples, and elms, and spruces, those are all outdoor trees. And they have to be grown outdoors, especially for 3 reasons. Number 1, they have to go through a cold dormancy. They also need a change of light.
Winter.
Winter, in other words,
Okay.
right. The second reason is that they need an incredible amount of light. Even the light under a large tree is more light than most of us have in our homes, so they need much light. The third reason is pests. Outside, nature keeps pests fairly well under control, especially with junipers and red spider mites. Indoors, the red spider mites can go nuts and get all over the house.
Well, there's no competition. They come inside and there's a population explosion.
That's right.
So if we keep these little guys outside, though, in the wintertime, don't they freeze?
Right. They're going to freeze solid, just like those trees that we just got done purchasing at the garden center and put in the front of our house. They're going to freeze solid.
So we treat them like a full-size outdoor tree.
Right, but we like to give them a little bit of protection, say either with a rose cone, or if it'll fit, or a snow, or shredded leaves up to about the first branch. Something to kind of stabilize the temperature, but keep it constantly cold.
Okay. Well, let's talk specifically about this juniper here. Now, this does evoke an emotion. Tell me what you did with this.
Well, what I try to do is capture that feeling of something on the edge of a cliff, that windswept look. So I found a large shrub. I took off branches that I didn't want, and the ones that remained, I wired them into the shape that I wanted them to go. Over here, what I've done is I've taken a branch, I've stripped the bark, and then I bleached it with a lime sulfur solution. It's a dormant fungicide, but it also helps preserve the wood a little bit. When you first put it on, it turns into a bright orange yellow.
Oh, no.
In about another 24 hours, it'll turn into a nice bone white to give it that bleached look.
So it really has a very old, haunting look about it.
Right, it's sort of a delicate look, but yet having a violent past.
Okay. Well, what about the ones that we can grow indoors then? What are some good choices for beginners?
Well, any woody plant is eligible to be a bonsai. Some are a little better than others.
Why woody?
Woody, well, that gives it more of a feeling of age, and when we put things like wire on it, the wire holds the position a little bit better when it's woody.
Okay. What about this one right here then? This is a...
This is an olive,
Okay.
a dwarf European olive, and right here I've got a natal plum.
Now, will that bloom?
That'll bloom. It'll often bloom in the fall.
Okay. And this one?
And that's a podocarpus. It's also called Buddhist pine.
Okay. Now, this taller one I recognize as some sort of fig.
Right. Figs are often used for indoor bonsai, mainly because they're easier for us to find them. This is a Ficus benjamina, or weeping fig. What I've tried to do here is I've wrapped wire around the individual branches. The wire should be about the third of the thickness of the branch.
Any kind of wire?
Well, copper or aluminum is used. In this
Okay.
case, I've used a copper wire. And with the wire, I can bend the branch up or down to fill a space or to make it go into a direction that I want. Say, for instance, this branch, if I want it to come down more. And with this tree, I've taken much of the soil away from the roots to give it that feeling of age. This is done in a kind of a clump style because I want that kind of abstract feeling of a forest.
Now, this is a work in progress, so this isn't finished yet.
Right.
Okay.
Shelley, this is what I want it to look like, is this tree over here. Obviously a lot more full. You can see what I've done with the roots, and the branches have already come out, and most of the wires have been removed.
Okay, so we only leave those on a couple months usually for the...
Rule of thumb's about 3 months.
Okay.
When you see the wire starting to dig in, then you take it off.
Okay. What do we have to do to keep these plants alive indoors?
The two main things, water and light, water and light. Especially water. Most of us are used to watering our plants about once a week.
Sure.
But most of these plants, partly because of the shallow pots, also because of the gritty soil, and partly due to the species, they have to be watered about every other day.
Okay.
And the other thing is light. So keep it either by a bright window, say a south side or east side, and if you want to use artificial light, keep the artificial light right on top of it so it gets plenty of light.
Okay. Are these a special breed of plants? How do you keep them short, I guess, is what I...
Well, the way we keep them short is with my shears.
Oh, okay.
Now, obviously, the shallow pots will slow the growth down a little bit, but it's mostly my shears that keep them small.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. If you'd like more information on bonsai, there's a lot of literature available, and there's a number of bonsai clubs throughout Wisconsin. Name a vegetable that can be grown easily indoors all year round. Give up? Edible sprouts are easy to grow almost anywhere, anytime. I'm with a professional sprout grower from Gaze Mills. This is Gil Frischman, one of the owners of the Sprout People. Gil, my first question is, why should I even bother to grow sprouts?
Shelley, growing your own food is a great experience.
That's true.
Changed our lives. Sprouts are nutritionally superior to virtually anything. You're looking at a wide range of culinary uses on top of that.
Well, let's talk about some of the uses. Now, this is the classic green
Your
sprout.
basic alfalfa. A sandwich or salad would be naked without it.
Okay.
Beyond that, you've
What's
got,
this?
we've got 5 different lentils in this one.
Oh, really?
We
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have over 50 different things that we sprout. There's just no limit.
And how do you use these?
We like to use the lentils on rice. We'll just, the last few minutes that the rice pot is
Okay.
cooking, we'll just throw a handful on top. And then we've got a couple different bean combinations, your pastel beans and your dark beans, and they're great stir fries. Salads are very popular for these also, and I think snacking is probably the most popular use.
You mean just eating them out of hand?
Correct.
Wow.
A popcorn replacement.
Okay, now you're getting me interested. How do I grow them?
Easiest thing in the world. For the alfalfa or clover type varieties, you take your raw seed and you're going to put it in some water. For these containers that we like to use, you use about 2 or 3 tablespoons, and you stir it up to assure even water contact for all the seeds. And you're
Water
gonna
is
let
cool?
it cool side of tepid.
Okay.
That's the way I like to use it.
All right.
And you're going to let that sit 8 to 12 hours, whatever's convenient. They are not very demanding. They will take more. If they soaked for 16, they'd still make it.
Okay, and then this is the container you said you like?
It is. We like to use these. They provide excellent drainage, which is very important, and also superior air circulation to jars, which is the conventional method.
Okay.
And we have a little screen provided to help keep the freshly soaked seeds from spilling out when you rinse them the first time.
Okay, we've put them in the container. Then what do we do?
We're going to put them under the tap. Once again, cool side of tepid is pretty much where we like our water. And we're going to rinse them for 10 to 15 seconds. It'll be obvious when you rinse them what they need. And you're going to repeat that every 12 hours, and each time you're going to drain them well.
Okay.
You can tip them, put them on your counter.
Direct sun?
Not direct sun,
Okay.
anything but. They'll take natural light or just incandescent light, and they'll turn green
That'll
in
take
their...
it.
Yes.
Well, you've got quite a progression here then. This is what, 3 days, 4 days, 5, 6, and 7. So in 7 days we're eating our finished vegetable.
Correct. This is the same amount of seed in each container.
Wow.
This seed has turned to that in
That
7 days.
massive. Okay, what about these here now? This is some sort of bean.
Those are mung beans, and that's a 4-day sprout, and growing them in these containers is a nice way to get the big, thick roots that we like in mung beans.
So we go again just from the small seeds all the way up to these massive white-rooted beans.
In just 4 days.
Wow.
It's really something.
How do I store them?
You're going to put them in the refrigerator. You don't want them to be freshly rinsed. Usually the rule of thumb is 12 hours past their last rinse.
And
Just
drain.
take them out of the container and put them in a plastic bag. Clean your container and start again.
Okay, thanks, Gil.
It's great fun. And they're tasty too.
I've been wanting to try them. You know, a fun and easy way to learn about plants, even if it's not the height of the growing season, is by sharing some of the stories about them. For instance, this is Rattlesnake Master, and it has some great stories attached to it. Joining me is Dane County Parks naturalist Wayne Pauley. And Wayne, you tell some wonderful stories about Rattlesnake Master.
This is a neat one, especially when I'm out in October with the kids collecting seeds. I work with about 1,000 kids every fall collecting prairie wildflower seeds. And when I tell them they're going to go out and collect Rattlesnake Master, I don't think they want to go near it.
I don't blame them.
I have to explain to them it was called Rattlesnake Master because the roots were used to master the poison of a rattlesnake after you'd been bit.
A neat story, and actually a very striking prairie plant, too. In the dead of summer, you get little white flowers, not much bigger than these seed heads here, and then the leaves are very desert-like. They look like the leaves of yuccas.
Yeah, and the surprising thing is although it looks a lot like a yucca, it's related to Queen Anne's lace.
Well, and sea holly, too, I believe.
Sea holly in your garden, that one that more people are probably familiar with than this one.
Well, I know that because of the story and the name, Rattlesnake Master is not one I'm going to forget very soon. You've got some others, though, that have some neat history to them. Compass plant, for instance.
The one with the leaves as big as elephant ears.
That's what you tell people?
That's what the kids think it looks. Well, the kids think they're that big. But they also want to know why it's called compass plant,
Yeah.
obviously, because you can tell direction with the leaves.
How?
Well, the leaves point in a north-south direction. The edge points toward the sun. For example, if you were to hold your hand out to the sun on a warm day,
Flat, you mean?
if you held the palm of your hand toward the sun, it would get warm. If you held the edge toward the sun, it would stay a little cooler. And that's what these plants are doing. They're holding their edge of their leaves toward the sun,
Okay.
which is in the south, so that the leaves point in a north-south direction. At least about 70% of the leaves, some people suggest, point in a north-south direction.
So as long as I pick the right leaf, I can go in the right direction.
Yeah, so about 30% of the people got lost, I guess. I don't know.
So some of the maybe that's why the whole country got settled. People just kind of wandered all over the place.
Whatever.
It's also a striking prairie plant from a distance because it stands so high above the prairie, 10 feet maybe?
Even
These
on the
flower
drier
stalks?
prairies, these will grow 9, 10, even 11 feet tall, higher than I can reach. And at the top are flowers as big around as a saucer under a teacup that are bright yellow.
Yes.
And when they go to seed, the goldfinches fly out of them. It almost looks like the flowers are leaving the plant when you walk up to one to gather the seeds.
I always feel like I'm growing an instant bird feeder when I plant this stuff. Now, you said there's a really nice story attached to compass plant. What is that?
Well, the one that I like to tell the kids because it sticks in their mind is about chewing gum. 150 years ago in pioneer days, the kids would go out and pick off that little bit of resin off
This
the
white
stalk.
stuff there. Mm-hmm.
And they'd chew that. If I could get you to... I can't get you to chew that, can I?
And it looks a little dry.
Well, maybe later you'll smell that. It smells a little like pine resin, and it tastes a little like pine resin, except it's milder. You see, the other chewing gum that they had 150, 200 years ago came from a spruce tree. They'd get big gobs of spruce gum from the pineries up north. You'd break off a little hunk, you'd chew on it. You'd have to spit for about 15 minutes to get it down to a decent flavor, because that first bite tasted like frozen gasoline.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that's why they used to say that sign of real friendship was when somebody else would get your spruce gum started for you.
Get it worked up and get rid of the taste for you.
You bet. So this tasted good right off the stalk, so you didn't need a friend to get it started for you.
So when the settlers came across this plant, they must have been quite thrilled.
Well, I don't know about the adult settlers, but the kids were.
They were happy. Now, there's another plant that's closely related to compass plant called cup plant.
The one where the leaves form a bowl around the stem.
Well, little cups almost, right? That hold water, yeah.
Even if it hasn't rained for about a week or two, you still have water at the base of that cup because the dew flows toward the center. And I understand that the people even see birds drinking water out of that.
I've seen hummingbirds and butterflies, so they use them as little miniature bird baths.
Amazing.
It's a striking prairie plant again, too. Now, this one is striking, but it is not a prairie plant. I'm used to seeing it driving along the highways. You'll see it up on a hill, kind of always standing out by itself. This is mullein.
This one's sort of like us. It's not a native. It came from Europe. I find it a very striking plant, and it's surprising how many people know this plant. It has over 70 names, common names in English.
Well, and it's got, the leaves themselves aren't particularly thrilling. They're very soft and fuzzy, though.
You know, people used to use them in the wintertime to line their shoes to keep their feet warm.
Well, and flowers, I think the stalk is the most striking part. The flowers are small and yellow. They don't open all at once along the stalk. So I think it must be the height that attracts people to it.
And you've got to also remember that sometimes you have multiple stems coming up, so that you got 8 or 10 stalks coming up. It looks like a candelabra, especially with the yellow flowers mimicking the flames.
Well, and that's one of the stories attached to mullein, isn't it? You did some experimentation here that looks suspicious.
Yeah, I decided to play with this. I soaked them in suet like I'd read about, that the Romans used these as torches.
Oh, really?
And so I melted some suet, soaked them in there, and you can see from the darkened end here that I lit one, and it actually does burn.
So you'd use these as torches regularly, Wayne?
No, I think I'll just put them up on my bird feeder and let the woodpeckers finish off the suet.
Hey, a great treat for them, especially this time of year. Now, this last one surprised me. This is nodding wild onion. I picked this from my prairie a week ago. It held up in the snow quite nicely.
I'm surprised the seeds are still hanging in there. Usually they've fallen out.
Well, and you can see where it's even still nodding a little bit, the onion. Beautiful flowers in the summer, kind of a lavender, pale purple, and strap-like, onion-looking like leaves.
I think the most striking thing about it in the summertime, though, is the way it smells, the fragrance.
Oh, you can tell it's in the onion family.
Yeah, very much so. I've actually walked through an area where there was an acre of this, and I can imagine what it was like to be hundreds of acres of it and walk through it day after day. It's as if walking on garlic all day long, sleeping on garlic, eating on garlic. The fragrance is very pungent. So pungent that the Algonquins called it the skunk, shikak. And where there were hundreds of acres of it, they called the place of the skunk, Chicago, which I suspect you can figure out was on the shores of Lake Michigan. They turned it into a town's name, Chicago, the place of the skunk.
Kind of a strange way to get your community named. But again, it's a story I'm not likely to forget. Where can we learn more, other stories about some of the plants that are out there?
Well, there's hundreds of books literally that have been written about plant folklore, but one that I really enjoy reading is Red Oaks and Black Birches. It just spins nice, interesting tales. For example, the spruce gum story is from there.
In there? Okay. Well, and one that I've enjoyed is Hedge Maids and Fairy Candles. It's another one that's just kind of nice to sit back on a wintry day and enjoy.
I agree.
Thanks, Wayne. I once had a friend who thought he was doing his houseplants a favor by letting the leaves that fell from it lay on the soil surface. His reasoning was that he was providing compost and mulch for the plant. Not a good idea. First of all, these fallen leaves are not compost. They're providing no food whatsoever. And they're also a perfect hiding place for insects and disease. Particularly the fungus gnat loves to hide in this kind of environment, and it eats decomposing material in the soil and nibbles even on the fine root hairs of your houseplant. By doing that, it opens a pathway to directly introduce fungus and bacteria to your houseplant. So clean off the fallen leaves off your soil surface. Now, a mulch for your houseplant can be a good idea. For instance, these decorative stones here are very useful in preventing water from evaporating too quickly. And that's very handy considering how dry most of our homes are during the wintertime. And you can purchase these at just about any nursery. Or you can even use something like a simple, colorful gravel mix as a mulch. They both serve the same purpose. Now, I like to take a lot of my houseplants out on the porch in the summer. And so what I've found that works very well is a bark mulch like this one. This is the same mulch that you use on your perennial beds, and again, on your houseplants, it will help slow evaporation of water. Very handy on a hot, sunny summer day. Well, I hope we've inspired you to try some different plants in your indoor garden. It's a great way to keep your thumb green year-round, even if you don't have a yard. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time on The Wisconsin Gardener.
Production of The Wisconsin Gardener was made possible in part by Jung Seed and Nursery Company, with garden centers in Randolph, Stevens Point, Madison, and Sun Prairie. Fiskars, a Wisconsin manufacturer of ergonomic cutting tools for the home and garden, distributed worldwide. And the Ahrens Foundation, the charitable arm of the Ahrens Company, Brillion, Wisconsin, maker of lawn and garden power equipment for consumer and commercial markets worldwide.